morning, everybody. It's Tuesday, May 14th, and this is the AgYield War Room. I'm Dan Dempsey, and I'll be moderating today's session. As always, if you've got any questions or comments, please feel free to drop us a line in the chat area, and we'll be sure to get to it during the show. Overnight markets here had July corn down a quarter at 472 and a quarter. July soybeans were down 11 and a quarter at 1208 and a quarter. And July Chicago wheat was down 5 3/4 at 681 and a quarter. This morning, the USDA announced an export sales announcement of 405,000 corn to Mexico. 135,000 of that was for 23, with the balance of 270,000 being for 24. We had PPI data out this morning, producer price index, still showing an uptick in inflation here. 0.5% was PPI. They were looking for 0.3%. One interesting note is they revised the March numbers down from 0.2% to actually negative 0.1%. So that was interesting to see that it actually in March downticked. Yesterday afternoon, we had crop progress and conditions report out. Corn came in 49% planted. That's versus 36% last week and 54% for the 5-year average. Soybeans were 35% planted. That's against 25% last week and 34% for the 5-year average. And winter wheat conditions came back at 50% good to excellent, which was unchanged from the previous week and still the highest rating for this time since 2020. CONAB this morning also out with updated estimates. Corn came back at a 111.64 million tons. Beans were 147.68. Acres were up 3.8%. So a drawdown in production there, but acres were increased. Lot to get to. I know we talked a little bit before the show. We also saw the list of updated tariffs from the Biden administration this morning, really heavily focused on electric vehicles, batteries, semiconductors, certain steel and aluminums, as well as semiconductors. So, nothing in the way of cooking oil that we saw so far. So we did see oil actually down a little bit overnight here, quite a bit this morning. Justin, a couple of initial thoughts here to get us rolling this morning, and then we'll throw it around the room.
Yeah, sure. I don't think anything too surprising on the CONAB numbers, outside the fact that we still have a pretty big discrepancy from the USDA and CONAB, especially in corn. The used cooking oil, there's rumors. We always get these rumors. No one ever can verify them. So outside of, some chatter on Twitter, on different social media, really didn't see any concrete stories on it. It was very specific, 19.5% tariff rumor. That wasn't in there today, which I'm not so sure that the market will be that shocked. We're kind of coming off, we had a 2-day rally, but it's been on a major bear market. And we were kind of questioning whether the government's even quick enough to make a change like that. So like you said, it was more focused on EVs and batteries and some things like that to probably make us a little more competitive, kind of anti-dumping stuff, which USO kind of fits in that camp. But I think it's relatively small market compared to what, the administration is probably looking at to focus on ag, unfortunately. But that being said, we're talking about, beans, corn, ratios making 7-month lows. I think that kind of fundamentally makes sense with what we know. We've been short covering beans. We've been short covering all these products, massive amounts of, fund liquidation going into the growing season. So I think that we've cleaned up a lot of that. Now it's just a matter of, is it something they feel they want to get long and going into the growing season? Is there enough compelling evidence for that at this point? I'm not sure. I think we're probably at a pivotal moment in planting. We're not really falling behind, but we went from being kind of ahead to now falling behind a little bit. And then corn, right about the average in beans. So obviously the next 2 weeks is going to be where people, put a lot of energy in. Is it becoming an issue or not? I don't think the market's trading that it is an issue at this point. I'm sure there's some people that are, obviously, but I think right now it's kind of, let's see what the next 2 weeks are and what the forecasts look like. It's the wet seems to be lingering in the areas that have been wet. So we'll see if that dries up. And if it does, then you might have a decent setback.
Yeah. Dustin, a few thoughts to add to that?
Yeah, I think just, making it a point to look at that CONAB number and say, like, what does the market trust more, the USDA or, CONAB? But that's like 400 million bushels of corn. And we also have drops in Argentinian corn as well. So, maybe that's some of the extra strength in the ratio, beans corn, or weakness rather in the ratio where corn's starting to gain on beans. As we go forward, I think there's a lot of people looking at that $5 futures number and trying to get more hedges in place. I think that's a big psychological number. We hit the 200-day here twice now on the December contract, right around that 495, and then we've kind of backed off of it. So this is kind of a big week here for trial and testing. Does it go and try to test $5 again, or does it start to kind of come back down towards where the recent range has been? I'm kind of waiting and seeing what the market tells us.
Yeah, and Justin, I thought it was interesting too this morning. You've touched on it a couple of times, just in the soybean complex and the fact that China not having a book out forward. It was stated this morning in the tariff announcement that the Trump era $300 billion tariffs are staying in place as well. So nothing in the way of that. So I mean, they went after him by all accounts pretty hard here, and it's not like those relations are softening in any capacity. That could be a headwind pretty good.
Yeah, and I think, even unofficially, right, that's been China's stance. I mean, we've been the last provider of soybeans and corn when Brazil has these big crops. They just prefer to buy them from them. So we have, like you said, I mean, basically no book on for new crop beans. I think if there was, a reinvigoration of a trade war, it's really dangerous for soybeans, especially with these big Brazilian numbers. That's why I think that you look at the USDA numbers that just came out for new crop supply and demand. It's very aggressive, to say that we're going to increase exports another 150 million, and we're struggling to hit this number that they have this year with another 20 million ton drop in Brazilian production. So just very lofty demand numbers to get to at these prices. That's the thing is like, yeah, you can pick demand up 200-300 million bushels, but it's not at $12 usually, unless there's a major drought or something. So I think the soybean complex is by far the most vulnerable. That being said, if they want to go get long, 100,000 soybeans, they're going to rally, in the short run. So to me, that's more of just money flow versus the fundamentals look, not so friendly, especially if, this used cooking oil imports that we keep doing, that's going to start hurting crush margins. And we're producing plenty of meal with the crush that we are doing. So if they're going to import, cheap Chinese oil, it's going to kind of make the crush number hard to hit too. That's supposed to be up another 125 next year. So a lot of just, now again, we still have to produce a crop, right? We still, they have a 52 yield, right? They have some big production estimates too. So not to discount that. But all things being equal, I think there's more headwinds in the bean complex right now.
Yeah. And we're going to talk a little bit. I mean, as we progress into the June report where we get sort of that final acreage number as well. I mean, the next 2-3 weeks stay in this kind of sloppy pattern. I mean, do you pick up bean acres in that scenario, in your opinion?
I mean, historically, yes. But that's, I think it's gonna be hard to gain a lot of corn acres. Right. Do you pick up a lot of bean acres? I don't know. I mean, the argument is that, total acres were down, but as Dustin's done a good job of showing, like, I think it's kind of back to a normal range. So it's not out of the ordinary, the numbers that we got with much, lower prices and compressed margins. So I would say you would typically gain more bean acres, in the Northwest, Dakotas, kind of I'll call them fringe acres. I know that's a term that people don't like, but the areas where beans are more competitive against corn, or you can't get the big corn yields to justify paying so much to do it. But those are some pretty wet areas too. The Delta, the Northwest, some of the wetter areas. So I just don't know. Yeah. I don't know that you can say that we're definitely going to gain bean acres. I think it's a hard stretch to say we're going to gain corn. So I just don't know.
Very good. Ben, a couple thoughts this morning from the East?
Yeah, you know what? I just want to say I love what Dustin said about letting the market talk to you, let it show what it wants to do. I think this becomes like hyperbolic narrative season for in a lot of places and a lot of people, and they kind of get stuck on this idea, whether it's too wet, or the farmer can get it planted in 7 days because of all the equipment, or it's going to be this summer, or there's this going on here. And I think that just becomes a really kind of a circular argument that is completely unproductive. And the market's going to let us know what it thinks and what it wants to do. So I just stay away from, I mean, you can look around and listen, and everyone's got an opinion of something, but ultimately their opinion is not going to influence anything that happens in the price of corn, soybeans, wheat. So I think that's just like a caution, because it seems to really amp up sometime normally in April, May, up through, mid-July. So
yeah, crazy season.
It's unbelievable. And I've never in my life been so sure of a trade as what I read some people that they were willing to post and put out there. I think it's I don't know if you want to call it clickbait or people who don't get it, have not gotten enough attention in their life, but they're not all they're vulnerable to the same things everyone else is when it comes to price, and the market will tell you what it wants to do.
Yep.
And we are at an inflection point. I think that's very well put.
Yeah, I think just keep in mind too, like as we talk about, just margins. Like, what does this 50-cent rally mean to you?
Yep.
What if it breaks back down 50 cents? What did that? Will you be more mad that happened, or that you missed out on more upside? And you just gotta find that right balance of what's important here. Because like Dustin said, $5. I mean, that was basically our floor for months. Now it's kind of acting as the ceiling, but it's kind of halfway back. Kind of our price range. So.
That's interesting. And we're throwing a lot at it, I mean, I think that's been said multiple times. You bring up the 50-cent break or a 40-cent rally or anything from this point, and you could flip a coin, right? You're a story away, or a continued weather pattern away type of deal at this point.
Yeah, I would say, what do you think, Dustin? We're within 10 cents of kind of break evens for a lot of people with APHs. That $5 number is not, there's a reason that's kind of the number, that pivot level, because that's kind of break even for a lot of people. It's yield.
Yeah, it's like, that's the thing. It's one of the highest break evens we've had in a while still for the underlying situation of price. And so if you have the smallest bit of yield loss, and we're putting a big portion of growers in the red. So that's why I think it's natural for us to find the seasonal support, because the answer is still not easy here. It's not like we can just be like, okay, we scratched out a margin, let's go sell it, and we're going to live to fight another day. You still have most people with minimum 15% deductibles on their revenue policy, right? 85% policies. So if you were to go sell your 85% right now and then end up losing that first 15% of yield, then you're looking at a 15% negative ROI, even if you're at break even right now. So there's a natural angst to not get too sold, and I think that's warranted to some degree. You look at, you pick any major county in central Midwest and look at a 30-year, trend line yield deviation versus price deviation, and there is an inverse correlation in a lot of those counties. If you have low yields, you're going to need higher prices. So I think the market's natural to find support at this time of year when they're building anxiety about the year, especially if they haven't had the best start to the season. A lot of guys really haven't gotten as much planted as they want to in key growing regions like Iowa, and they've got some rain in the forecast. So, all those participants are part of this market. I think, just trying to do the best you can of just not taking it and making such a black and white situation of, do I sell and don't sell? And that's why I'm glad you brought that comment up, Ben. It's like, we don't know what the market's going to do, because we can't predict what weather's going to do. We can't predict what geopolitical changes will happen here, how China is going to react to these numbers. but we can do some small steps to soften it in between there. We don't have to take such a black and white approach on it. And I think that's what we're just aiming to do here on a custom approach, depending on what each individual can handle.
Oh, that's really good stuff, guys. Just coming into the open, Ryland, got a couple of thoughts on cattle here as we started the week yesterday.
Yeah, it's a pretty quiet struggle here in the meats right now, but I'd say on the meat side of things, everything was looking pretty good. So we had sharply higher beef yesterday. I think that's probably going to help add a little bit of support here this morning. And, you know, we saw a big jump in bellies. So it seems like we're starting to get in that time frame where we should see these cutouts start to really kind of grind higher here. But, you know, on the cattle side of things, there was, I guess, two plants or two majors kind of cut back slaughter. So we saw a little bit of a weaker kill, but I think the market kind of saw that coming. That's why it was so weak yesterday. But all eyes are going to be on the cutout right now in both places. So we'll see how that shapes up. But it's been a good start to the week so far.
Very good. Appreciate that. Just coming in here to the open, July corn is up a half right now. 473 is the last. July soybeans are down 13, 1206 and a half. And July Chicago wheat's down 4 at 683. Every day that the markets are open, we're streaming live on X, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live, 8:15 Central Time. Thanks to the guys for all the thoughts and comments this morning. It was a good discussion. Hope everybody has a great day. We look forward to talking to you tomorrow.